BC right now. But we're so glad you're here. Eileen specializes in the Akashic Records. So she's going to teach us a little bit today. She's also going to do a meditation for us today. But first, let's get to know you, Eileen. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ruth. It's lovely to be here and be with everyone who's joining in.
We are so glad you're here. Eileen, not everybody knows about the Akashic Records. So first of all, could you just describe a little bit about what the Akashic Records are, and then we're going to get into how you became to know so much about them.
Okay, thank you. Well, the Akashic Records are known, like in modern day language, like a universal etheric library. So it's the field where everything that's happened in creation and all the possibilities is out in an energetic level, like you would see like a library, an energetic library. And there are many ways to access the Akashic Records. And I was trained in one particular way. And the way that I work with the records is at the soul level with people, so that when we open every person, every place, everything that's in form, every city, every business, every person, every dog, all of creation has a record. So when we open the record, we're going into the part of the record that's relevant for the person to know what is relevant to their life at this time. And that's the way I was taught how to work with the Akashic Record. And it also holds the possibility of that which is coming forth in this time, the new Akashic Record. So that's basically in a nutshell what the field of the Akashic Record is.
That's great. Thank you. And Eileen worked with me with Enlightened World Network and looked at the Akashic Records, which was fascinating. So one of my teachers had said that the Akashic Records was kind of like your very own file cabinet, and everything you've ever thought or said or experienced, not only in this lifetime, but in past or other lifetimes as well, is all in that Akashic Record file cabinet. And so what Eileen does, she teaches folks how to go in and work with their own Akashic Records. And if you do further study with Eileen, she teaches you how to work with other people's Akashic Records. So here at Enlightened World, we're going to be offering some kind of a course with Eileen for folks to be able to work with the Akashic Records. I myself am going to be taking that class, and I'm looking forward to doing that. Now, Eileen, not everybody who is a light worker works with the Akashic Records. How did you personally come to this point that that's where you like to specialize?
Okay. I'll just give you a bit of background. When I was a child, I always knew anything was possible. And I had a personal relationship with Jesus, being brought up Catholic, but I wasn't in relationship with the dogma and the beliefs that I was seeing of limitation that were happening all around me. And that kind of got me into trouble, because I knew in my soul that no one is judged by spirit, and yet there was a lot of duality talking about this is right and this nation is better than that nation, etc. And eventually I was led into working with dreams, working in Jungian analysis, and I did that for 9 years with an analyst and studied various forms of energy work, which took me deeper into the psyche. But I always had this pull in relationship to, I know anything's possible and miracles are possible. And how does that happen? So I was eventually led down to Brazil, to John of God, the casa in Brazil. And I met a woman and we were talking, and she said she worked with the Akashic Records. I had never heard of them at that point. And I just knew my next step. And I came back to Canada and I phoned her teacher and said, because I was going to be returning to Brazil for a longer period of time, I said, I know I'm meant to learn how to do this. and I'm leaving in about 6 weeks. So she said, no, we don't teach this by phone. And I said, but I know I have to do this. And so she said, okay, I'll ask the president of the organization of Akashic Records International, and we'll open your records and we'll ask. So she did, and she got back to me and she said, yes, you're to take this into Brazil, because there are a lot of things that start to happen when people have experiences, and working with the records is a way to bring the greater wisdom and truth of what's happening in relationship to your life at that time and how to move forward or what to let go of. And so she taught me by phone how to open my own records. And then the second part of that was to learn how to open the records of someone else, so that when I went to Brazil, I could do that. And I was down there for 3 months. And when I came back to take the training to become a facilitator, to teach people how to open the records. But what struck me about this way of working with the records was that there's an invocation and that you say when you're learning how to open the records in this particular way, and that the guidance that they got superseded what, the integrity that they were holding with not teaching this by phone usually. So it was they were honoring what was coming forth from the masters and at the soul level. And that's what really struck me, because there's that spiritual wisdom and guidance that we're tapping into and that are working with us in this particular way of working with the records. And I'm sure it is with other ways, but in this way it is. And so that's built into working with the Akashic Records in this way. And then after that, I was working with people, teaching, and this was a few years later. And I had an experience when working with someone where this frequency came in as a divine feminine and said, I am the new creation. And I didn't know what to do with that. So I just thought, I'll be quiet. And eventually that frequency started to come through and became what was shown to me as the new Akashic Records. And the new Akashic Records are totally working from the soul level to realize there's no separation. That we often think of spirit and me, and we're still in duality, and we're still trying to fix things, and that can work at a certain level. But in the new, we're coming from the place of perfection, even though it's already there invisibly in our spirit. And so we're accessing from that place in relationship to what's going on in our life, and learning what we're not, and with love and compassion, letting go of those limitations while still continuing to refocus into abide in the place of our true self.
I have so many questions for you. You and I spoke a little bit about your time in Brazil and John of God. And of course, there was all this controversy around, was he really standing in the light? But, then there's the shadow side of these behaviors in the physical. And you and I were talking about the shadow side. Can you share a little bit about your perspective of the universe and there being a shadow side? Some light workers say, no, there isn't a shadow side at all. Where do you land on that?
Well, this is where my being in analysis for that length of time really showed me about the shadow side. And I do believe there is a shadow side at a certain level of consciousness. In our spirit, there's no shadow. Our true spirit is infinite and whole and is pure light. And we can access that. And the way that I work with people is for them to identify within themselves the patterns that they see of, say, fear or anger or lashing out, and bring the light to that shadow side. But what happens often is we get identified and think, that person's bad and that's not good. That's in duality. In the infinite light of who we really are, there is none of that. But we're learning to access and abide more from the light and bring the light to the shadow. And something may still need to be addressed, but where are we addressing it from? Are we addressing it from limitation, or are we addressing it from the self, the big self? So to me, it's not black and white. And it teaches us about compassion, and it teaches us about our own patterns. Because if I'm triggered in some way, there's a reason that what happened on the outside has triggered me. So it's showing me the place where I can bring consciousness to that pattern with love and learn what I need to learn. And that's where working with the records brings an awareness to that. I'll just give you an example. I think I shared this with you, Ruth. I was, someone asked a group of people one time if they wanted to give money to Africa for wells. And I just knew in spirit, everything's already in place and there's water already there in consciousness. And I was, so I said to someone, let's meditate and see that. And this person that I asked said yes, and then didn't want to do it. So I just let it go. And I was sharing a year later, I was sharing that experience with a friend at a restaurant, and I had a breakthrough. The self came through, spirit came through and said, you didn't believe it was there either. Like there was no judgment in that, but there was still layers of doubt in my psyche that wouldn't allow for that experience to unfold, because the consciousness of that truth that it already is there needs a consciousness of a person to hold that, to know it is true. Does that make sense? And so that was a great revelation of a deeper layer of doubt within me that was shown to me, so I could open to that and continue to let it go. And that's where the records helped to bring that insight. And I just remember when Australia was having these fires, this whole area that had dried up, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, where this river had been very dry, it just erupted. And they showed me that as a parallel to, we can keep ourselves limited in thinking, well, because it's dry, it's never going to change, and we keep ourselves limited. But if we stay open to all possibility, not trying to force anything, then it can come through. And the water just erupted one morning. That was on the news one time, and it was a beautiful example about how the impossible can become possible.
So that has been your mantra through life. When you were growing up, were you surrounded by any adults or anybody that believed the same way you did and could help promote that in you? Or were you sort of out there by yourself?
I was out there by myself, although my grandmother had a very deep connection with the Blessed Virgin, and she had 12 children, and the youngest, my aunt, the youngest, was dying, and she appeared to my grandmother and told her she would be okay. That was never talked about in our family. I just found out about it when somebody was telling somebody else, but it was there. But there was still it wasn't that I could really share of the experiences that I was having, which I'm sure that's for a lot of people, because there was a lot of fear of, who do you think you are to have something like that? And this is the way it's taught, and this is what you do to stay safe in the world.
Right. Was there conflict with your Catholic upbringing with being able to see and intuit?
Well, it came through, but I had to keep it quiet. And I felt, as a kid, that I was doing something wrong, like, the teachers are saying this and all of that, but my soul was unrelenting of, showing me something different. But I that's why I had to get into analysis, because it became a split in me. And I was becoming overwhelmed by the unconscious with dreams. And so when I went into analysis, the container was built to allow the layers of the soul and the shadow to start to come up. And then working with the records was a whole other way of being and developing.
And you're an artist as well. Is your artwork sort of a bringing your soul into this realm, or do you connect your artwork with spirituality?
Oh yeah, I see everything is connected. My artwork is very simplistic. It's very childlike, and it's been about really accepting that and learning how to be playful and really celebrate in the moment what is there, whether it's the color or the story. And you can open your records and have your records open when you're doing your art. And, asking the images if there's any greater insight that the images have that want to come forward in art and with dreams as well. So it becomes an infinite place of expansion. And I just want to say something about the new records, Ruth. I worked with a woman who had been having an ongoing Kundalini experience for a number of years and couldn't sleep. The energy was too high. And when she learned how to open the new Akashic Records, immediately it became a consciousness where she could relax and sleep and just continue to open to what was happening. But it became that place that was acceptable in her body and in her psyche for allowing more of what was coming through to come through. And she wasn't resisting it in any way.
I've spoken with several people lately that felt overwhelmed, that what they were being shown or intuiting was too much for them. Mm-hmm. And we really just worked on asking your guides and your own universe just to back off a little bit and let things be at your pace of what you're comfortable with. And each time it worked. It worked beautifully. Yeah, nice. So Eileen, I know you have a meditation that you would like to share with us.
Okay. I think the one that would be helpful for people is the earth meditation.
Okay, great.
So I'm not opening anyone's records at the moment, but what would happen if you bring your attention inside and feel what's happening there? And then bring your attention down to the center of the earth. And see what you see and feel what you feel. And to ask her if there's anything that she wants to share with you. And see her out before you as the earth, as you know her. And see how that relates to your body, if it does. If there's anything in relationship to your body with the earth. We're not trying to change anything or make it different. We're observing and listening. And now we'll bring our attention back. And we come into neutrality, which means we're open and empty. We let that go. We let go of what we have seen and what we have felt. And now I'm going to ask you to see the earth as the new creation. Don't go to the mind, just open your awareness to see her as the new creation, the new earth, the spiritual earth. And see how that feels. And feel that. What gets presented to your awareness. And see your body as that light, as the new, in whatever way it presents itself. Because there is no figuring this out, it's opening and allowing the presence of the new creation, the new earth, the new body to be present. And as you look at the earth as the new earth, bringing your attention right into the heart of that, what does she say or show you? And what does your body feel like? And what does your body show you? And just breathe. And then from this place, staying in this place of the new, think of some situation in your life where you don't have an answer to something's concerning you. Just keep it small at the moment, some situation where it's still there. And where you go within yourself normally to try and get an answer to a solution to the situation. And now, from the place of the new that's open, present that problem out before you from the place of the new and allow the new to shine onto that situation. We're not trying to change anything, but we're seeing it from the new, being the new, the allowing. And see what is presented. And if there's any thought or feeling that is a limitation, that will never change, or I don't know, bring the light through your intention. Just simply bring the light through the intention and place it where the limited thought or feeling is. And see what happens, what's presented to you from that place as you bring that to the situation. and see if the situation has anything it wants to say or show you from being in the new light, in the new consciousness, the new creation. And you're keeping your attention as the new, as the openness, as the infinite. And allowing. And then we bring our attention back and we give thanks to all the invisible realm that was present, to the earth, and to the new creation we give thanks. To our bodies and to all who are present. And when it feels right, just open your eyes.
Thank you, Eileen.
You're welcome.
Share for a quick minute here. Excuse me. They're working with me on my concept of time, and I've gotten that for a couple days in a row now. And what I saw was not going with the man-made construct of time, but connecting more in with nature's rhythm of time, with the changing of the seasons and the moon cycles, and really reorienting my concept of time to that, to connect with the earth. So that was really fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. That I just like to comment on. That's a good. Thank you for that, Ruth, for sharing that. Time is the construct of the limited of the mind, and so one of the ways that we can approach life differently is if, say, we're going for a walk in the morning, and we stay open and empty, and we don't label anything. We allow nature to show us and present us with what it wants to tell us. So we go empty and we don't go in with any concepts of the past. And that is so liberating, because then we're staying open to the moment and the freshness of each moment as new, because nature is carrying vibrations of consciousness that can show us something new if we don't label it.
Yes, yes. And actually, they're asking me to share with you something that they shared with me the other day and had me create a meme on. So the other day in meditation, this is what I was told. There is beauty in the gaps between the minutes. Love lies within the gaps. That is where you will find yourself. So really, again, that piece of not just staying within the constructs of time, but removing yourself from that and just being open to spirit and what it has to share with you, and really finding yourself in those moments of meditation.
Yes. Yes. And when if we have active minds, there's a way to also deal with the thoughts so that we and welcome them up, so that they get to be seen and released, because I see that everything wants to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're more open. That's beautiful. Yes.
Eileen, when somebody comes to you and you work with them one-on-one, what can they expect?
Well, first of all, I'm really clear about what an Akashic session is, because it's opening then to what the soul is wanting to reveal in the moment. And they're coming into the greater part of themselves. So, that's where my focus is to look at where people will come, say, with a problem, but it's not trying to fix the problem. It's realizing there's a bigger picture and moving into the bigger picture from the soul, and then how to let go of the limiting patterns and thoughts and beliefs, so that, just like what you say, in between the gaps, there's something greater. And it's coming out of the mental mind and into the expansiveness of everything is whole already. And what does the wholeness want to reveal? And what is keeping me from that, so that I can open to more of who I really am and live that, and also see that in others as well. Like the divine is everywhere, as everything. And so the more I see that in myself, the more I'm automatically seeing it in others, and I'm opening to the more of this great infinite part of my soul that wants to come into expression.
I think some people question, okay, so you spend this time in meditation. How does that impact you in the 3D? We are here in body,
Yeah.
in the we don't get to just mentally escape it all the time and live in this la la land. But what I'm experiencing with what you're talking about is, yes, we might spend time in meditation, and yes, we might spend time connecting with our guides or our higher self, or our divinity, however you want to view that. But how does that impact you here in the 3D? And I can say it truly does, because when I'm done meditating, I come in refreshed, and I come in grounded, and I come in with a much larger understanding of my role in the universe.
Yes.
Every person that I come into contact with, because I can see them as a spirit created out of love, rather than just some person here in the 3D that may or may not annoy me, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the way I react to people is very different if I've
Yes.
been in meditation.
Absolutely. And we get to see when we are being judgmental, for instance, or where our thoughts are limited. And we can learn to be compassionate with ourselves in relationship to that, and realize, I'm acting out of a limited place. And now I'm choosing to shift my awareness to my true nature, to that openness. And if the understanding of what that pattern is, not the story, we don't need to go into the story about it, but the pattern is, I can bring love to the pattern, and I can bring love to that person, I bring love to myself, or, and all of that comes from the self. Forgiveness comes from within, but from the big self. That's where grace comes through. Like, sometimes you hear people say, I couldn't have done that on my own. That situation was too horrific. I couldn't have, but forgiveness, grace came through. Forgiveness came through, but it comes from the self, which is what we are, not from the personality. And so we learn how to see those more and more of those limited patterns, realizing that's not who I really am. And so we're learning to disidentify and let go of what we're not, and open to what we really are, to the self.
That's beautiful, Eileen. Eileen, if folks want to know more about you, how do they find you?
I have a website, thenewcreation.ca, and my email and phone number is on that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. You're also on Facebook.
Yes, just under my own name.
Okay.
Yes.
Eileen Murray. Eileen, thank you so much for
Thanks.
spending this time with us today.
Thank
and
you.
Friends, thank you for being here for Focus on Lightworkers. Thank you for continuing to explore what each of these different lightworkers has that might touch you in your personal and spiritual growth. So thank you. So take good care, everybody, and God bless.